there's still some people coming in from the lobby, at least on my computer. Not sure why it's not letting Helena in.
I know, I see that. I can work on that.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Glad you could join us. We don't have a huge amount to cover on our end as a team, so I really hope to get to have some time for report outs and hear how things are going in your areas. So I just wanted to give you a warning so you can be thinking about all the things you want to share. Let me share the agenda. Hello. Folks seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And you're recording, Joanne?
I am,
yes. Sorry, I see it now. Okay. So I wanted to share what the SASH admin team is working on for our goals and priorities for 2024. Talk a little bit about enrollment numbers, and then we have a couple of updates. And Marcy has something to share about blood pressure, and Annika has a few questions about the conference, and then we will do some report outs. So that's the plan. And so what I wanted to share around our team goals is a couple of the priorities that I thought you would be most interested in. Some of these you already know about, but certainly a huge focus this year is going to be around mental health and the embedded mental health program getting off the ground. And in addition to that, a lot of work around addressing the mental health needs statewide, whether there is a SUC at the panel or not. So the CAT is leading a lot of that work. I know we have one SUC hired at this point, and I believe a second position has been offered in Central Vermont. So more to come on that, but that is definitely going to be a big focus and a lot of work. We're also continuing to focus on the SASH for All pilot and helping that pilot get off the ground, which it's been a super successful year and a half so far. And so serving about 83 adults and then also their children, and continuing to work on funding to expand that. We are, as I think we've alluded to on numerous occasions, we're also working on finding a new data platform for all of SASH. And obviously with Implify, we were working really hard on this last year. That fell through. But from that work, we really realized that there is such better systems out there that will make the work easier for our staff. So as hard as change is, we are anticipating a new platform coming this year. We have just last week put out a request for proposals to multiple other platforms. So the data team has been working really hard on figuring out exactly what it is we want in a new platform and need in a new platform. So those requests for proposals went out last week, and we're going to be spending January and February kind of exploring what comes back and what the options are. So that's another really big project. We are working on a SASH health equity plan. This is really an expansion of the health literacy work that Kat led over the last 2 years, and wanting to have more of our resources, hopefully our legal documents, things like that, more accessible to SASH participants, so that our staff and our participants could, for example, read the use and disclosure and know what it means. That would be really awesome. So that's a big project. As you know, we've been focusing a lot on care coordination and improving the care coordination. That's a OneCare grant initiative and priority, as well as addressing social determinants of health and the high ED utilization. Those are also something really being pushed by both OneCare and the Vermont Department of Health. And Marcy's done a lot of work on that already with the Vermont Department of Health grants and the new scorecards, which we're getting really good feedback from staff about. And then a last goal, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about on the next slide, is increasing enrollment in the SASH program. Any questions on these goals before So don't pay too much attention to the exact numbers on this slide, because I imagine Andy is unhappy with the exact specifics of these numbers, because there's so many different ways to count participants. And we can count the number of people who are in SASH today. We can count the number of people served over the year. We can count autos. We can count just fully enrolled. But the point of this slide is that we are staying fairly steady in enrollment at around 4,800. In 2020, we had around 4,600. We went up a little bit in 2021 and 2022, all the way up to 4,800. And now we're still around 4,800. The problem is that we also expanded at the end of 2022 by 6 half panels. So that means we should have grown even more with the addition of those 6 panels. And so we have right now about 4,800 participants. Ideally, if we were fully enrolled, we would have around 5,300 participants in the program. So looking at monthly status reports for November, we only have about 20 panels who are fully enrolled, that they don't need to sign on any autos, any full benefit participants. 37 are under enrolled. And there's a huge range in that. Some need to sign on 1 person, some need to sign on 46 people. So there's a really big range, and wanting to work on having those panels be fully enrolled, we needing to sign on about 500 participants to meet that goal. And the way that you will know where that needs to happen is looking at your IM report, and this over on the right here, this total number needed to enroll for your panel is over here. So this is a half panel here on the top that needs to enroll 14. This is a full panel. The next one down, I assume you can see my cursor, needs to enroll 5, and another full panel that needs to enroll 25. This is just an example. So that's how you will know what panels you have that needs to increase enrollment. Something else I wanted to say about that. Any thoughts, questions around this initiative? Don't think this is new news to anybody. Oh, I remember. The other thing I wanted to say about this is that this year is going to be very important around establishing continued funding for the SASH program. And one of the questions that we've already heard from the state is, well, what's your wait list? So, and we know we have wait lists, and I think Liz has reached out to some of you about the length of your wait lists. And we certainly know that there are areas of the state that really want SASH that we are not able to cover. But it is still hard to talk to funders and say we need expanded funding for the program when we are not meeting these numbers, when we're under enrolled in a lot of areas. So that's part of the push to try to boost this. And we need to be able to show to OneCare that when we added 6 panels, we increased enrollment, and it's not, right now, it's still the same as it was before we added those 6 panels. Comments, questions on that?
Casey, I have a question. Oh, Casey, can you raise your hand? Sorry, I just spoke up. Is there a pattern of panels within sections of the state that are that need participants? Like, have you noticed that there's just is it, for instance, like the more urban areas that are having trouble enrolling? Or because I know, at least for from my experience is that a lot of my rural panels are actually have wait lists, and it's the ones that are in urban communities that need enrollment. So I was just wondering if you happen to see any other kind of patterns.
I haven't looked real specifically, but I don't think there is an across the board pattern for the state. There are certainly rural areas that are having a really hard time recruiting. And then there are buildings that are maybe site-based, and they have kind of maxed out their building, and then they still don't have enough people. So then what do you do? Do you go out into the community? Do you add another building? So there's a real variety on why there are low enrollment numbers. But that's a good question. It's something to look at really carefully. Somebody else have their hand up. I'm sorry, I can't see anybody anymore.
Yeah, Carol, you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Well, not so much a question, just, looking at, my area, I know that we had the new half panel come, and with the with Housing Trust, that full panel took half of their people and gave it to the new Brandon half. So that full panel is still working on bringing its numbers up. I know for one of my other buildings, Sheldon Towers, I think there's a lot of Medicaid folks in there, and we've had a big turnover. So that's some of the issues there. And I know the Castleton panel, I believe, it also has a need for some new enrollments. Not sure. Again, she's had a lot of folks on her panel, but there's been some turnover. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different things happening. And then I think it also makes a difference if I know that we have the virtual nurse and coordinator, but that also kind of makes things a little bit more difficult too, in terms of being able to sign people on and do it, doing it quickly. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, and what is it in terms of when you're looking at enrollment? I mean, are you looking at Medicare and Medicaid folks? Are you looking at?
Yeah, we're not. This is just total numbers of people. So we have not looked at it by insurance type at all. But
what is the expectation too, in terms of, how many just Medicaid folks do you want? And where are we? And I think that was something I had asked Liz a while back, because I was going back and forth with some of our, population.
Right. Yeah. And I know that Liz had done some exploring about that. I don't remember the exact number, so I'll have to get back to you. My memory is that it was like 10%, but I don't want to misquote that. And I think I think it's important. You made some important points, Carol, and one is that there's a whole bunch of reasons why our enrollment is a bit low, and we certainly don't want folks to just go out and randomly sign up every person on the street corner to get numbers up. They really need to be folks who need SASH and want SASH, and we don't want to be pushing panels. I've been getting to attend the panel reviews as Helena is getting started, and there's really good reasons why we may want to pause. So if somebody is, if it's the remote staff, or if there's a vacancy, or if somebody has some other really huge issues that they're struggling with right now in their panel, it's not a time to push enrollment. The reason I wanted to share this with you is that you all know that better than we do. So you can look at your report and know which panels are appropriate to push and which aren't. And how do you support them to increase this enrollment? It's certainly something we talk about in all the panel reviews too. But your folks and what's going on there, and maybe there is another building they can explore, or maybe this isn't a time to push that particular panel.
The other piece too, Casey, is, in terms of, like, I know Sheldon Towers, we've had a big turnover, and there's a lot more I think Medicaid, then Medicare. You know, we had also thought, and we haven't really had a discussion about it, but we've been toying somewhat with maybe changing the panel, you know, maybe have it be half site-based, half community.
Yes.
So, you know, I guess there's different ways to look at things and change things up. But
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that there are also areas in the state that want another half panel and maybe could fill another half panel. So if there's one panel that needs to get changed to a half panel so that you can open another half panel somewhere else, that is another option. Or as we've been talking about over the last few months, changing it from a site-based to a community, and that lowers a little bit the expectation of panel size. Other thoughts or questions on this?
Casey, it's Marcy. As Casey knows, we have kind of been working on a flyer for referrals. So what it is just like a picture of SASH participants, a little blurb about what SASH is, and at the bottom there's like little tear-offs that will, if somebody is interested in joining SASH, it has the sashvt.org website and a phone number. There's going to be two different layouts. One is maybe more geared towards your local agency partners that you can give them so that they maybe have a better understanding of what SASH is, especially since there's so much turnover within some of those agencies. That might help support referrals to your panel. And, you know, maybe Casey, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, but maybe in the next IM meeting, I think you have like that doodle board thing. Maybe IMs can throw ideas on how to increase referrals and share those with other IMs.
It's a great idea. And Marcy and Logan have both been working really hard on this flyer that I think it was originally Jody Bellardi's request, that something to be able to put up, share with partners. So that may be a great tool for some areas. Thanks for sharing that, Marcy. All right. Move us on. Just wanted to do a quick shout out to the remote staff. We shared this slide with OneCare last month, and OneCare does some of the funding for the remote staff, and then the housers also are paying for the remote staff. But wanted to share that in 2023 that the remote staff supported 22 panels and did 385 wellness nurse assessments, 20 SASH coordinator assessments, and over 2,000 participant visits, mostly by phone, but some in person. Especially Devin has done some in person, and then some by Zoom as well. So a lot of nurse vacancies right now around the state. I know most of you are working on that, but there is a lot of nurse vacancies. Both of our nurses are totally, and Marcy actually has joined this team now too and is supporting a panel. So we now have 3 remote wellness nurses covering panels, and they are at capacity, and we have 1 vacancy in the state that we are not able to cover. So definitely want to push hiring nurses if there's any way to do that. That was everything on my slideshow. So let me see how to end this. A couple of other just quick updates to share. One is that we learned this week that COVE, the Council of Vermont Elders, has closed. So they are no longer providing any services in the state of Vermont. And so I know a lot of panels have worked with COVE in the past and had them come and do presentations on Medicare fraud. So they are no longer open. I wanted to share that. And then the last thing I wanted to share was a reminder for your teams about getting CHOPS in. So I know a bunch of the Cathedral Square staff have a 1 month, another month to get those in because of the transitions that are happening at a lot of the Cathedral Square sites. But for everybody else, they were due on December 31st. And I think we have 31 in so far. So gotten quite a few, but there's also a lot more out there. So be a good week to check in with your staff, ask them how they're doing on their CHOPS, if they need any help on their CHOPS, and they can certainly reach out to us if they have questions. Right, and then I will turn it over to Marcy for your update.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So with the Vermont Department of Health grant for hypertension, one of the things that they've asked us to do is to create a workflow so that SASH coordinators can be doing blood pressure checks while there's a nurse vacancy. So I've come up with a draft for this protocol. The remote nurses have chimed in on the protocol, given suggestions. And so what we're going to do is start with each remote nurse is going to pick 1 or 2 panels to kind of roll this out at. And so what will happen is the SASH coordinator will have to follow the protocol, watch a video on how to take blood pressures with automatic blood pressure cuffs. There's a skills checkoff list. So at this point, I think we're thinking that the remote nurses will do like a Zoom or a Teams meeting so that they can watch the coordinator do a blood pressure check on a participant or maybe another employee and get checked off on that skills list. What the expectation is for the SASH coordinators doing blood pressure checks is not for them to be doing blood pressure clinics, but if somebody pops into their office and wants their blood pressure checked, or if the remote nurse is wanting a blood pressure done on a participant, those are the cases where the coordinator can take that automatic blood pressure cuff and get that blood pressure reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you all this protocol. It's a draft. You know, if we've talked with the remote nurses and, you know, any changes or suggestions in this protocol, we can certainly make those during the next 6 months of the VDH grant. So any questions on that? I'll send that out to you this morning.
I think we have a wide range of comfort with SASH coordinators on checking blood pressure. Some are already doing it and doing it all the time, and others are totally terrified of it. So it'll be a learning curve for all of us. And Annika, you had some updates on the conference.
Great. So we just want to check in about the SASH conference for this year. So we are planning on doing it in person again, but we have decided to move away from the Fireside Inn as the venue. And so we're starting to explore other options. And some of the things that we're trying to keep in mind is, does it have adequate parking? And how accessible is it to the majority of our staff? So some of the places that we are considering at this point are Killington, maybe something in Burlington, like the DoubleTree. We're gonna explore a little bit more Lake Maury, which I'm not exactly sure what it is. I think it's a little bit south of Montpelier. Does that, if that sounds right, Casey? Something like that.
Yeah, it's a little, it's up 91 a little bit farther than Fireside. So it's still off 91, right on the edge of Vermont, but
and then a couple of other suggestions that we received recently were maybe something in Stowe or maybe something in Manchester, Vermont. So those are the places that we're sort of holding in mind at the moment. I'm going to do some research and find out, you know, what their availability is for September, what the cost is. But just wanted to see if you guys have any feedback about any of those locations or another location. You guys have any strong feelings about any of that?
I've been to a couple of conferences at Lake Maury. That's a
Yeah.
really nice venue.
We used
Okay.
to do that way back in the day, I think, like the very beginning, and it was really beautiful. And you could have the option to like get a hotel room and stay over the night before. And some people would go kayaking and like the free time in between and
Make the whole
paddleboarding.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really nice. I did really like that. I will say Stowe is incredibly expensive. Like,
Yes, I'm
I
sure
know
it
that's
is.
a thought on our minds. So I'm just putting that out there. Yeah.
You mean expensive in terms of like a hotel room?
A hotel room at Stowe is probably like $365 to $500 a night. My husband's building just finished the new place there. It's very expensive, even to have a conference there. The conference space is nice, but it's small, and it's also still very expensive, even in the off season. That's my 2 cents.
Becky, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say Manchester's going to be challenging. We have a challenge just finding event space for our luncheons and our SASH events. So Manchester could be very tough.
Yeah, someone had suggested the Equinox in Manchester, which
That's
I've been there,
pricey.
but I'm not familiar with their conference space.
It's pricey. It's pricey.
Yeah, Manchester and Stowe probably both are. That's probably true.
Yeah.
I'm curious for folks around the Lake Maury, because the reason we shifted away from Lake Maury was travel. So it's probably a half hour, 45 minutes farther for most staff than the Fireside. And I think Gary may be the only exception to that, where it may be closer for your staff. But how much of a challenge or a barrier is that for folks?
So this is Becky, and for our group coming from the very south of the state, it's much better than going to Burlington.
Is it? Okay. So going to Lake
Yes.
Maury would still be better than to Burlington.
Yes, it cuts off probably close to an hour of time.
Wow. Okay. Did not realize that. That's interesting. The other thing we've been discussing a little bit is that we may move the venue around year to year one of the things we're exploring a little bit is how much we spend in mileage for all of the Chittenden County staff to get them to the other side of the state. And if we had it in Burlington, sometimes what that cost looks like compared to, is there ways to move it from year to year, because so many of our staff are in Burlington. Obviously, we can't have it in Burlington every year, but that is another part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But it didn't realize, Becky, that Lake Maury would actually be closer for your staff than the DoubleTree. So that's really good.
Yeah, by about an hour.
Well, thank you for your feedback. It's good. I think we can probably cross Stowe and Manchester off the list.
Yeah. Thanks, Annika.
Yeah.
So I did want to hold plenty of time for report outs, because we haven't been able to do that for a couple of months. I know there's a lot going on at Cathedral Square. I assume there's a lot going on at other places too. But why don't we start with Lisa and Pilar? Do you guys want to go first? I know there's lots going on for you.
Well, I can say for myself, I literally cannot report out anything because I just got back from vacation and everything just transferred. And now I'm like learning all the new panels as of yesterday. So yesterday was my first day and getting into emails. So it's a brand new world for me as far as some of these new panels, and everything is shifting around quite a bit. So I'm literally just figuring it out like yesterday and today.
Had a blur. I think that there's a a lot of anxiety coming from a lot of the coordinators sort of in this transition of splitting up the positions. A lot of them reached out to me over break with their anxieties. And it's funny because a lot of it doesn't have to do with more work, like that Sash is going to be more. It's actually this anxiety of letting go of this, like this pride of like, I've built this panel for the people who are moving panels within Sash, or even the people that are moving from manager, to management. This sort of like pride of I've built this panel and I don't want it to get ruined. And we're trying to be like, yes, well, the other coordinators wouldn't be working here if they weren't awesome too.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of trying to just kind of, support everyone, remind everyone that we're all a team, and we're still kind of in this. It's going to be a transition for the next 2 weeks, I think, as far as information sharing, making sure that everyone is okay. Initially, we thought it would be kind of a hard switch, and then I got back from Mexico, and then it wasn't a hard switch, and that changed. So now it's a little bit more of a softer switch that's taking a little bit more time to allow for, the things that we can't think of that are going to come up anyway. So yeah, but we did come up with a whole checklist sort of for panels to be able to physically hand to the new people coming in, so that they were prepared with, the details that they need to sort of get a flash of understanding the panel. And gosh, am I missing anything? We're going to do some refresher trainings with Sash Admin. Yay!
Yay!
Yeah, and I drafted an email, but I never sent it to you because that's my life. So I'll get that to you.
That's funny.
And thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Bill. I'm not sure that all of the IMs are up to speed on what's happening at Cathedral Square, but for all the 10 years of SASH up until this point, it has been a combined property management SASH coordinator role at every panel. And that is being split so that half of the staff are becoming just property managers and the other are becoming just SASH coordinators. So there's a lot of change happening there. A big deal. And Lisa and Pilar are also becoming full-time IMs. So that's also a big change. Awesome. And I know that you have already reached out to some other folks on this team around how it runs at your panels, but I'm sure you can continue to do that during that. Right, let's go to Carol. How are things in Rutland?
Good. So I've been working with Rutland Pharmacy. They have a grant that they're working on, a blister pack initiative that they're working on. I think the Rutland Hospital is the administrator for that. And so Marty and I have had a couple meetings, and we're hoping to get that started at some point. He's supposed to reach back out to me. We've also, with Rutland Pharmacy, they reached out because they had some COVID vaccinations still, and wanted to know if they could possibly do a clinic. So I'm working on my panel to see how many folks we could get, who haven't maybe had their COVID vaccination yet. And what else? We just started looking at our tax AARP tax volunteers to get scheduled in our sites. We've got dates for those. What else? That's all I can think of for right now.
Thanks, Carol. Annika, you want to go next with Addison?
Yeah, Addison, we're doing well. We have a SASH coordinator that's going to be taking about a month off, some FMLA. So we're fortunate to be able to access Devin, the remote coordinator, to help support that panel for up to 8 hours a week. So feeling good that everything's going to be covered there. And otherwise, the only real focus for Addison right now is enrollment. So we have some panels that just need 1 or 2, and then I've a panel that needs like almost 18 or about 18. So that's really the only kind of real focus for them right now. But otherwise, everything's going well there.
Thanks, Annika. And Helena, I won't put you on the spot because I know you haven't even met your panels yet, but Helena is going to be the IM for the Chittenden County panels that are not Cathedral Square. So she'll be getting to meet them this month. Becky.
Yeah, we are fully staffed. I just want to put a plug out to everyone. If you have multiple panels and you can hire one nurse full time, it is a game changer. Just saying. So we have Jenna that is a full-time 40-hour nurse and bounces to all our panels. And then we still have 2 part-time nurses. We have partnered with the Medical Reserve Corps through the state of Vermont Department of Health, and they're going to be shadowing us on blood pressure clinics, and then they may be coming in to offer blood pressure clinics for us. Just trying to think of different ways to free up Jenna for some of her nursing. They also provided an adolescent dental clinic for us free of charge, putting sealants on and checking. We are now in talks of them coming to all our different sites and offering the dental clinic for seniors, all free of charge. I have a meeting next Monday with all my staff members to go over the CHILP and kind of explain how to use that to manage the different deliverables that you guys are asking for this year. I think something at some point got lost in translation on the CHILP. So I just want to go over that. So some of my staff may not have submitted it. Some may have submitted it and I'm pulling them back and redoing them. Other than that, I think we're good. Just plugging along.
Great, thank you, Becky. And I know that Logan is working hard on getting those posted on STAR. As of yesterday, there were only 11 up on STAR, but she said she had 20 more that had been submitted over the holiday break. So if you don't see it posted already on STAR, that doesn't mean it's not done yet. So just so you know that. And that's really exciting about the dental clinics. Let us know how that goes. I know other panels have used the VDH Medical Reserve Corps for foot care, but I hadn't heard of anybody using them for those other services. So that's great.
We actually are in talks with them on providing foot care as well.
Wonderful. Gary, I think you are the last one.
Oops. There I am. Well, not a whole lot's going on. I've lost 9 people this month from my panel. Just got a call this morning that they found another one passed away. So I'm going to be doing a lot of headhunting. Not really a lot's going on. We have officially taken over the management of New Avenue, which is about 40 units. So I may be splitting that with Robin. Other than that, we're fully staffed. Some other projects are coming down the pipe as well in Peacham, and Canaan's going strong. I've gotten a few grants from the Vermont Food Bank to put together some portable kitchens for cooking classes and refrigeration units for some of our senior buildings. They've asked for those, but that's about it right now. I don't have a lot to add. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a busy time of year. So great. Okay. Anything else that we missed or anyone else wanted to bring up? We do have 20 minutes left. Happy to let everybody go early. I'm sure there's plenty to do in your inboxes. But if anybody had any questions or other things they wanted to bring up, we also have time for that. Becky.
I just want to go back for a minute to the enrollment numbers. Are you figuring that as the original 100 per panel, or are you figuring it by the numbers that we're using now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Andy, I see your hand is up. I don't know if you want to answer that or if you had a different question.
Kind of both, because it ties into what I was gonna bring up, but the enrollment numbers are based on the panel designation, so the size and the type, and those will be on your QA reports. So based on the whether it's a half panel, full panel, all that, as well as whether it's a community, site-based, or mixed. And yeah, that relates to what I was gonna say, because I just wanted to remind everyone, if you hadn't already, to get back to me with a panel information sheet that I had sent out after last meeting. I can resend that again after this meeting. But that'll be really important to make sure that we are counting the right information, because the panel sizes are based on that information. So if we have the wrong information, then you'll also have the wrong information as far as how much you need to enroll.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, Andy. When I was putting that slide together last night and trying to calculate these numbers, there was one in particular that I looked at and like, wow, they need to enroll 45 people. And then when I looked across, I realized it was being counted as a full panel and it was actually only a half panel. So those kinds of things are what Andy's trying to get fixed, but needs your feedback on so that we correct it.
Yeah, and if you could let me know which one that is, Casey, I can fix it. But yeah, if yeah, I know there's been a few of those things that have popped up, and also the other thing about that is the I think we've been reporting on some inaccurate minimums and maximums for a while that didn't even align up with the information we had as far as what type the panel is and all that. So if the numbers on your November QA report look different than they had previously, that could be why. So yeah.
Yeah, so take a close look at them when they come out. They're coming out this week, Andy?
Yeah,
week?
that's the other thing I just wanted to bring up. So I'm hoping to get monthly status reports out in the next day or two, and the QA reports hopefully by the end of the week, but maybe more likely early next week, just with the holidays. It's been a bit behind, but yeah, they're in progress, and yeah, they should definitely be out early next week.
Yeah, so take a look at those when you get them, and certainly reach out to the help desk if you have any questions or they look different or they don't make sense to you, and let Andy know if there's changes. The one I noticed, Andy, is one we had already fixed this month, so it shouldn't show up next month, but in November it was still listed as a half panel. So
okay, perfect.
Casey, that number that Liz sent was 7.5% of Medicaid.
Right.
I think it shouldn't have more than 7.5%.
Of people who are only
Correct.
have only Medicaid and
Yeah.
on your panel.
So that would be good to have in terms of maybe something on the status report.
I think that in some instances may be challenging to calculate, in that I don't know how up-to-date insurance information is in some panels, but definitely something we should take a little deeper look at.
Yeah, there is that insurance tab on all the QA reports also.
Yeah, yeah.
So that'll get you at least the numbers we have.
And does that, Andy, break it out as to who has Medicaid only, or is that including dual enrolled?
It has a column for only Medicare, a column for only Medicaid, and a column for dual enrolled. So it's separated out by whether they have one or both.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say also, that does not mean that if you look at that number and you're like, oh my gosh, I have more than 7.5%, that we would want you to remove anyone from your panel just because you're over with Medicaid. I don't think we should be removing anybody from SASH. Of course, they have to be in your housing site if they have Medicaid only. But maybe you are not enrolling more people with Medicaid only. Does that make sense? I don't want to kick people out of SASH because we've changed how we're looking at the numbers. That wouldn't be okay. Thank you for those questions. Anything else before we? Oh. Right. Well, thank you, everybody. We will send out the slides and a recording. And we'll see you all next month. Don't hesitate to reach out in the meantime.
Have a good day.